What's up, everybody? I'm HoopsandHipHop, and welcome back to another episode of the Pokeblock Podcast. I believe this is the 17th episode, if I'm remembering correctly, and boy, oh boy, do we have an interesting one today. Originally, I was planning to talk about the new anime series that is going to be announced later this month, because in last week's episode, we talked about things I didn't like in Pokemon, or was it last episode or 2 weeks ago? I can't quite remember, I'm going to be honest. I got a lot of things going on. But in a recent episode, we talked about how one of the things I didn't like in Pokemon was how the anime was handled and all that stuff. But then shortly after that, it was literally like a couple days after, I think, they announced that they're going to be announcing a new anime series at the end of the month on the 29th. And so I wanted to go ahead and talk about that and basically talk about what we know, talk about what it could be. And we are still going to do that. But a recent development happened at about 11 p.m. last night, and it was lucky that I decided to wait until basically the last second to record this episode, because this definitely changes what we're going to talk about. In case you didn't know, late last night, Thursday, the 12th, for people who are wondering, who are listening to this after the fact or whatever, the Pokemon Company, it was about 11 p.m. my local time, so it was like 1 a.m. Eastern, to give you an idea of how late this was. The Pokemon Company, at about this time, they uploaded something to their new Pokemon, or to their website, for Sword and Shield, and it was a new Pokemon. But the thing about this reveal is that it didn't actually, like, it revealed a Pokemon, but it didn't actually reveal a Pokemon. When you go to the Sword and Shield homepage on their website, you'll get this random little video that pops up that it looks all glitchy. If you go to click on it, it'll go to the right side of the screen. If you try and click on it again, it'll go to the top of the screen, and then if you try and click on it again, it'll go back to the center, and then after a third time of clicking on it, it'll make Rotom's cry, so you'll hear Rotom's cry, and then it'll reload the page and the whole process will start over again. But if you get lucky, there's an off chance it'll actually take you to the like web page of this Pokemon, like you can see for all the other Pokemon on the website, but the image of it is all glitched out and funky and pixelated, and then the information for the Pokemon itself, like, you can only see bits and pieces. We can tell that it's a fighting type. It weighs 257 pounds. It's got Steadfast as an ability, but its name is obstructed. Bits and pieces and parts of its Pokedex description are obstructed as well, and it's just very, like, overall very, very mysterious. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about that today, and basically talk about what it could be. The first thing that, like, first I want to mention is, like, how, like, first off, it's, like, super, super, like, weird for them to do this so late at night. Like, this whole situation is very strange, odd, weird, but also super fantastic and fun. Like, it's so kind of just, like, almost inconvenient for them to do this at, like, literally in the middle of the night when no one is expecting it. But that's how you got to catch people off guard. Obviously, do it when no one is expecting it. And then the other interesting thing, obviously, the whole concept of their man, I cannot talk today. The whole concept of there being this weird, glitched out mystery Pokemon, like, that's just fascinating. That's just fun to talk about. But then it's also just a really, really interesting kind of mystery when you throw in the whole Rotom situation, because Rotom is somehow involved because its cry plays when you click on the video. And obviously there's, like, we know that Rotom is a Pokemon that's an electric type. It possesses electrical appliances. It's even part of the Pokedex. So that's definitely a thing that's going on, that could be part of this. But the Pokemon in question here, according to the website, is a fighting type. So that doesn't really have anything to do with, like, glitchiness or anything like that. So it's really anyone's guess as to what exactly is going on. This ultimately could just be a fun way to tease a new Pokemon, but at the end of the day, it's very, very mysterious. And as far as what the Pokemon looks like, I really wish I could, like, show something on screen, but this being a podcast and all, it's kind of hard to do that. I could technically do it on YouTube, but with the way I record the gameplay and stuff, it's kind of like, it's kind of out of the way. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's just a little out of the way to kind of throw that on there with the way I do the gameplay and stuff. It's a little different than editing a regular video, but the image of the Pokemon that we have, even though it's like, as I said, super pixelated and just like glitchy and you can't really tell, it looks like one of two different things. A lot of people are saying it looks like a Cubone because it does have a brown body and what looks like a white head or like Cubone skull of some kind. And it looks like it's holding something. But then there are also some people that have noticed that if you turn it about, I don't know how you would turn it. It's basically like if you tilt your head 90 degrees to the left and look at it from the side, it will actually look like what appears to be a Farfetch'd or a Farfetch'd evolution holding a sword and a shield. And people are thinking this is the likely scenario because it does look like a bird. It does kind of look like it's holding a sword and a shield. We already know that Farfetch'd has a leak, so if this was an evolution, sword and shield and in a sword and shield would make a lot of sense. And Farfetch'd is famous for holding a leak, and this is kind of a leak, so it's kind of like a pun. So that could be the case. And an evolution of Farfetch'd has been rumored for a long time in a leak that has gained a lot of traction as being true. So that definitely seems like an interesting, likely scenario. And it seems like the most likely scenario at this point, although it could technically still be anything. My one hope with this, though, if it does indeed end up being a Farfetch'd evolution, I'm completely fine with a Farfetch'd evolution. It's been a long time coming for Farfetch'd since it's gotten no love whatsoever for so long. But I will say, with it looking like it's holding a sword and a shield, I feel like that's like in a game like Sword and Shield. It's literally called Sword and Shield. Even with Farfetch'd having the leak previously that it uses as a weapon, I would honestly feel like that would be a little bit too basic, a little bit too predictable for something like this. Like, it seems like giving Farfetch'd a Sword and Shield as an evolution in a game like this would be something that like you'd see out of a fan game, not necessarily like official Pokemon. You think whatever design that the Pokemon company themselves would decide to do would be a little more deep, a little more inspired, and wouldn't be quite so like gimmicky or memey. And that's kind of what I feel that like we've actually had a lot of memey kind of like joke, goofy Pokemon that have been revealed recently. Like we've got Obstagoon, that's the Kiss Pokemon. You got Galarian Weezing. We've got Poltegeist, that's like a teapot Pokemon, like British stereotype and all that stuff. So if this ended up being another kind of like goofy, like joke Pokemon almost, I would be slightly concerned just because at that point I feel like they would be overdoing it with the joke Pokemon. So there's part of me that's hoping it's not that Farfetch'd evolution because of that. I'm hoping it's something different. But ultimately we'll see. Ultimately, whatever it's going to be, like I said, Farfetch'd evolution I'm okay with. I just hope it's done the right way. But it also could be something else because like even though this is a super fun, interesting, creative way to build up hype for a new Pokemon, just out of left field, this super mysterious, just weird way of doing things, like that is so much fun. I would honestly love for them to do things like this, even though it creates kind of a bit of a headache as a PokeTuber because things like this just throw your schedule completely out of whack. And then you're just on your toes all day, and you can't go anywhere because you've got to be home in case they like finally drop the official trailer. So it's a bit of it's a bit frustrating in like the best way possible. That's how I always put it. But I would just love if they did this more often because it creates a lot of buzz, a lot of hype, a lot of like positive discussion about the game, which this game definitely needs with all the controversy that's been going on about it. But I don't know, there's just part of me that feels like this Pokemon is more significant. Like, even as fun as this is, and as just for fun as this could be, you know, they could just be doing this for fun. Pokemon typically don't just do things just to do them, whether it's in the games themselves, whether it's in their promotional material. They typically don't just do things willy-nilly. There's usually more of a purpose to them, more of a meaning to their actions. And this way of introducing a new Pokemon and building up hype for an announcement is obviously very particular. It's very distinctive. And I can't help but feel like that means something for the Pokemon they're revealing. And I just don't know how something like this would have meaning that would be tied in to a farfetch'd evolution, because as I said earlier, this whole theming doesn't really fit with what a farfetch'd evolution is all about, but it doesn't really necessarily fit with what a fighting type is all about either. So it's really hard to say for sure. Like, if I had to put money on it, I'd probably say it's going to be a farfetch'd evolution, just because, like, thanks to the community's analysis of it all, that definitely seems what it is. Like, it seems the most likely scenario. But I don't know. Like, there is part of me that feels like there's some deeper meaning, some deeper connection to this. And I kind of do, in a way, want it to be a cool new Pokemon, because as cool as a farfetch'd evolution would be, and that would be an evolution, that would be a new Pokemon if it was an evolution. I don't know. I feel like with this kind of announcement, I would prefer a brand new Pokemon that we've never ever seen before, that doesn't have any relation to any other Pokemon, to be revealed in this way, that also has some connection to why it's glitching out and stuff like that. That's kind of my ideal scenario. Like, this seems like the type of thing that they would do with like a Lucario or a Zoroark or a Blaziken, one of those Pokemon that's like the titular Pokemon of your region that they typically reveal like even a little bit before the region itself is revealed. That's kind of like their poster child, if you will, that helps them promote the game. This kind of feels like that sort of thing, but given that we're already in the middle of the promotional period, it's not. So this is definitely a mixed bag. It's very mysterious. Like, we've never really, in recent memory, we've never really had something like this go down. We've certainly had unexpected announcements, surprise announcements, but we've never really had something in the realm of like mystery like this, for lack of a better term. Like, it never really has gone down this way. It's always been like in a trailer or surprise announcement at a game convention or a conference or something like that. We've never just had an out of the blue, glitchy, mysterious, like, ooh, what's it gonna be, super speculative type of thing. Like, this has never happened. And I don't know, like, I just really want to like talk more about it and speculate about what it could be, but because it's so much fun, like, it's so mysterious of a thing, but that's really all that there is to say about it. And now we're at the point where we just have to kind of wait and see what happens. That at the time I'm recording this, they have not announced anything further, but I definitely think they're not going to let it sit there like that in that glitched form for too long. I think they'll reveal whatever it is before too long. If I had to guess, it would be a trailer coming at some point later today on Friday. I'm currently recording this at about 7-ish a.m. local time, and the podcast is going to go up at around 10. So I'm hoping that nothing goes up between now and then, because then I got to re-record a whole new podcast. But if anything does happen, I'm kind of feeling like it's going to happen like at some point today. I would be very surprised if it happened. Like, I would be very surprised if they waited the whole weekend and didn't do anything until like next week or something. That would be kind of, because that would be kind of weird, because you gotta strike while the iron is hot. And now they've created the buzz. So if they let this simmer for a few like days, because there's so little to speculate on, because they're not showing much, it kind of will fade a little bit in people's minds. The hype will die down a little bit, like it's peaked, but then it's going to die down if they let it sit too long. So I definitely feel like they're going to talk about something. And since the weekend is literally tomorrow, technically, and they're not going to talk about anything during the weekend because it's the weekend, no one's working. This is still a business, even though it's video games and it's fun. So I feel like they've got to reveal something today. I feel like now would be the best time. So ultimately, I guess we'll see. But if you guys end up hearing this and this ends up going up, then that means by 10 a.m. or so local time, they have not revealed anything, which I don't know, will be kind of strange. Will be kind of, that'll be a little bit unusual because when they reveal something, like whenever they do, they usually do it early in the morning around right about this time that I'm recording, in fact. So if we get to 10 a.m. and they haven't talked about anything and then they don't talk about anything for the rest of the day, that would be kind of surprising. So ultimately, we're just going to have to wait and see. I will probably come back to this at the end of the podcast, just for some closing remarks, since this is kind of like the fun topic of the day. But I did want to go ahead and spend a little bit of time on the other thing that's going on in Pokemon right now, which is the anime series, which was going to be the original full topic of this podcast. And as I said earlier, they've announced an announcement that's coming on the 29th that's going to be announcing a new anime series. They did not say a new season or anything like that. They said a new anime series. And that's why this is so interesting, because whatever it is going to be separate from the main anime series. We just don't know what it is. The only thing we know is the announcement on the 29th, and we know that it is going to feature it is going to feature Galar in some way, because the teaser announcement video they showed basically featured all 8 generations of starter Pokemon. So we know it's going to feature the starters, at least. It's going to feature Galar in some way. And then there was a brief press release that stated that the setting of the series is going to be every single region. So it's going to take place across all regions, which is extremely interesting for several reasons. Because this, like, the way they're making that sound with that statement makes it sound like this is kind of like the anime version of the dream Pokemon game that we've always wanted, where you travel to every region and you get to go to every region that's currently available. The other interesting thing is how they're ultimately going to accomplish that, because as much as it sounds like that is the case, I would find it very unlikely, I think, for one main antagonist, or protagonist, I should say, to literally travel to every region throughout this entire series. Because when you're talking about a TV show, it's definitely going to flow differently than a game would. And so to get through all 8 generations and go to all 8 regions and, like, I mean, in the anime, you wouldn't necessarily be taking on all the gyms in every region, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to spend a whole lot of time in every region if you're having to go through 8 regions in a series. Like, who knows how long the series will go, but realistically, you got a lot of ground to cover, and so you're not really going to be able to stop and smell the roses, so to speak, in every region before you have to move on to the next one. So I would more so suspect that it's going to be something more along the lines of, like, kind of like Pokemon Generations was, but with a connecting story where we have, like, not one single protagonist that travels everywhere, but we've got basically multiple protagonists across the different generations that are all connected in some way. They're all linked together. They're all working towards one singular goal or something like that. But they're all in the different regions, and so they've got to basically, like, take action in relation to whatever's going on for their local region, and that's how it'll operate. It'll bounce back and forth between these different protagonists, and it'll kind of tell the story that way. Which, if that's the case, that's kind of interesting, because obviously, when it comes to anime series, it's all about the singular protagonist. He's got his supporting cast, and it's usually you follow the adventures of this group of teenage kids who have superpowers or whatever the case may be, and then they work towards a singular goal they're trying to accomplish, and the anime kind of develops from there. So if there was really this kind of bouncing around, like, bunch of characters not staying in one place for too long type of vibe, that would be an extremely interesting method of storytelling. But we'll ultimately just have to wait and see. The other interesting thing that obviously everyone's talking about with this being a new series is the question of whether or not it's going to involve Ash Ketchum or not, because Ash Ketchum is the face of the anime. He's an iconic, beloved character, but at the same time, a lot of people have wanted him to either develop and mature and grow older, not be 10 anymore, or be abandoned by the anime altogether and let a new protagonist take over and just let the anime kind of become something different, to where it's not this same old thing over and over again, where we're just going through this cyclical motion with Ash not winning any leagues and staying young forever. People kind of want something different. They want something new. They want something more mature and serious, because obviously Pokemon fans are a lot older nowadays. And maybe we're going to get that. I would honestly be surprised. I would really be shocked if they gave up Ash altogether, though, because he's such an iconic character. His name is literally Satoshi in the Japanese version of the anime, because he's directly named after the creator of the franchise himself, Satoshi Tajiri. And so he's basically Ash is the anime representation of the creator of Pokemon. So how are you just gonna ditch the essential creator of Pokemon within the anime? That would be a very very ballsy thing to do, to be honest with you. So as much possibility and excitement that there would be surrounding not getting rid of Ash, because I don't think Ash is a bad character. I think the way they've kind of handled him could be done better. Obviously, he could have more development, and it could be a little more taken seriously and not so kid friendly, that type of thing. But the idea of having a new protagonist, as opposed to Ash, because we've had Ash for so long, the idea of that is exciting. Not necessarily getting rid of Ash, but just having a new protagonist in general. And when you combine that with going all over the region, or all over the Pokemon world, to every region, whether that be with multiple protagonists, one protagonist, what have you, all of this paints a very interesting picture. And then the final thing to go along with that Ash speculation is, will this new series essentially be the Sword and Shield arc of the anime? Because it's featuring the Galar region, it's featuring the Sword and Shield stuff. We already know that. And so because we know there's going to be a Sword and Shield anime, the Alola League and the Alola arc of the anime is starting to wrap up as we approach the release of the game. So we know there's going to be an Alola or a Galar anime in some way, shape, or form. So are we going to see Ash in this series, and they're going to just start a brand new series altogether with Ash, and this is where the Sword and Shield anime is going to kick off with him? Or is this going to be the Sword and Shield anime, but it's not going to be with Ash, and there's just basically going to be a new start to the anime altogether, and it's going to kick off the Sword and Shield arc, and it's basically going to be a fresh start? Or are we going to get a regular Sword and Shield arc with Ash, but then we're getting this series alongside of it that also just so happens to feature Sword and Shield stuff? There's several different possibilities. They're all as equally as likely at this point. If I had to guess, like I said, I don't think Ash is going to be completely gone, but I would be surprised if they were going to try to do two anime series together at the same time, because doing two at the same time, it just wouldn't really make any sense. There's not really the need or the room for two anime series at the same time. To even be able to pull that off, they'd have to have starkly different themes and styles, and based on the teaser we saw and the animation that we saw, it didn't seem like it was that different in terms of art style and things like that. So I don't necessarily think there's going to be two simultaneous series going on at the same time. So I would say this is going to be a brand new series that will feature Ash in some capacity, but be different to the series we now know. And if that prediction was right, that would also mean the basic end of the series we now know, which is basically just general like Pokemon, the general Pokemon anime series, which is kind of, I don't know, I like that in and of itself is kind of like very, very almost nerve-wracking to think about. Makes me kind of like somber and sad to think that that could end. And not that it's ending in a bad way or anything like that, because obviously like it'd only be passing the torch on to a new series, a new generation or whatever. It wouldn't be because of like bad viewership or whatever, but still, the Pokemon anime is one of the longest running TV shows of all time. It has over 1,000 episodes. Like it's not only important to the Pokemon franchise, it's like historically important to TV in general. So that would be a big deal. And because of that, especially because there's no loss of interest at this point, I really don't know that they would do that sort of thing. So that kind of brings back into play the idea of the two concurrent series like idea, but I don't know. It's going to be very, very, like, it could be anything. It literally could be anything, but I am extremely excited because, as I said a week or two ago, the anime is one of the few things I just don't enjoy that much about Pokemon because of how much of a missed opportunity it is with the way they handle it. So if they're starting a brand new series, they have the opportunity to do things right, make it a little more mature without making it not kid-friendly. They could tell a little bit more of a narrative. They could increase the storytelling. There's just so many different possibilities they could go with this. They could right so many wrongs that they've committed with the anime, and they could get back opportunities they've lost. This is just a huge opportunity for Pokemon, so I'm extremely, extremely excited. These next few weeks between the anime announcement, between whatever's coming with this glitchy Sword and Shield announcement, which will likely, what they're ultimately going to probably do with that is reveal that Pokemon, but then reveal it in a trailer with some other stuff, because revealing one Pokemon, there's not a whole lot to that. So they're probably going to reveal some other stuff with it as well, so we can expect that fairly soon in all likelihood. So overall, it's going to be a fun rest of September for the Pokemon franchise, and that means you're definitely going to want to follow wherever you're listening to this, because we're going to be discussing, talking about it, analyzing it literally every single Friday, provided there's more information to go off of, but it sounds like there is. So hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube, hit the follow button if you're on Apple Music or iTunes or Spotify or whatever. Definitely leave your thoughts in the comments below or social media or wherever you're at. Just let me know what you guys think. Be sure to follow UCast Studios on our social media as well on Twitter. You can follow me, Hoops and Hip Hop, everywhere, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that stuff. I definitely recommend following my YouTube for plenty more coverage as well. I'm sure plenty of you are already doing that. Thank you. But yeah, that's basically all the time we've got for this episode. We'll be back next Friday with obviously more. Hopefully we'll have more news to cover. We'll probably be able to talk about whatever this new Pokemon is by then. So it's going to be a great time. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll catch you in the next one, like I said. And until then, I will smell you guys later.